Welcome to Wise Tales by Wonders. Today's tales is about the life and times of a great prophet in the Bible. Prophet Elisha. Elisha was the devoted servant and successor of the great prophet Elijah. His story begins in 1 Kings 19 verse 19 to 21, where Elijah finds Elisha plowing in the fields and throws his cloak over him, symbolizing the prophetic calling. Elisha immediately leaves his family and work to follow Elijah, serving him faithfully until Elijah is taken to heaven. In 2 Kings 2, Elisha boldly asks for a double portion of Elijah's spirit. After witnessing Elijah taken up in a chariot of fire, Elisha picks up Elijah's cloak, marking the beginning of his own prophetic journey. Parting the Jordan River. Elisha's first miracle comes shortly after Elijah's departure. With Elijah's cloak in hand, Elisha strikes the Jordan River, crying out, "Where now is the Lord, the God of Elijah?" The waters part, just as they did for Elijah, and Elisha crosses over. This confirms his anointing as the new prophet of Israel. 2 Kings 2 verse 13 to 14. Healing the waters of Jericho. Upon entering Jericho, the people complain that the city's water is bad and the land is unproductive. Elisha takes a bowl of salt, throws it into the spring, and declares that the Lord has healed the water. From that day on, the water remains pure. 2 Kings 2 verse 19 to 22. This miracle symbolizes Elisha's ministry of restoration and blessing. Judgment on the mocking youths. In a more serious event, as Elisha travels to Bethel, a group of children mock him, saying, "Go up, you baldhead." Elisha calls down a curse in the name of the Lord, and 2 bears come out of the forest and maul 42 of them. 2 Kings 2 verse 23 to 25. This miracle reflects the seriousness of disrespecting God's anointed and the sacred office of the prophet. Filling of ditches with water. Moabite war. In 2 Kings 3, Elisha is approached by 3 kings, of Israel, Judah, and Edom, who need water during a military campaign against Moab. Though Elisha initially rebukes them, he agrees to help for the sake of righteous King Jehoshaphat. He tells them to dig ditches, and the next morning, without wind or rain, the ditches miraculously fill with water. Not only are the armies saved, but the water also appears red to the Moabites, tricking them into a failed ambush. Multiplying the widow's oil. In 2 Kings 4 verse 1 to 7, a widow of one of the prophets cries out to Elisha because her creditors are coming to take her sons as slaves. Elisha instructs her to borrow as many empty jars as she can and to pour oil into them from her small jar. Miraculously, the oil keeps flowing until every jar is full. She sells the oil, pays her debts, and lives on the rest. This miracle highlights God's provision for the faithful and helpless. The Shunammite woman's son. Elisha often stayed with a kind woman in Shunem. Grateful for her hospitality, he prophesies that she will have a son. A year later, she does. But tragedy strikes when the child suddenly dies. The woman rushes to Elisha, who comes to her home and performs one of his most powerful miracles. He prays, lays on the child, and breathes life back into him. 2 Kings 4 verse 8 to 37. This miracle shows God's power over death and Elisha's deep compassion. Purifying the poisoned stew. During a famine, Elisha is with a group of prophets. Someone accidentally cooks a stew with wild, poisonous gourds, causing the men to cry out, "There is death in the pot." Elisha throws some flour into the pot, and it becomes safe to eat. 2 Kings 4 verse 38 to 41. This miracle illustrates God's care even in desperate times. Multiplying loaves to feed 100. Another time during the famine, a man brings Elisha 20 loaves of barley bread and some grain. Elisha tells his servant to feed 100 men with it. Though the servant protests, Elisha assures him that there will be more than enough. Miraculously, everyone eats and there is food left over. 2 Kings 4 verse 42 to 44, echoing the later miracles of Jesus. Healing of Naaman the leper. In 2 Kings 5, Naaman, a commander of the Syrian army, suffers from leprosy. His servant girl, an Israelite, tells him about Elisha. Naaman visits Elisha, who instructs him to wash 7 times in the Jordan River. Though initially insulted, Naaman obeys and is completely healed. This powerful story of healing and humility teaches the importance of faith and obedience to God, even in simple instructions. Gehazi's greed and leprosy. After Naaman's healing, Elisha refuses to accept a gift. But his servant Gehazi secretly runs after Naaman and lies to take silver and clothes. When Elisha confronts him, Gehazi is struck with Naaman's leprosy as punishment. 2 Kings 5 verse 20 to 27, showing that God's servants must walk in integrity. Making the axe head float. While building a new place for the prophets to meet, one of the men loses a borrowed axe head in the river. He cries out to Elisha, who throws a stick into the water. Miraculously, the iron axe head floats. 2 Kings 6 verse 1 to 7. This small but mighty miracle shows God's concern for everyday matters. Blinding the Aramean army. The king of Aram sends troops to capture Elisha, who had been revealing his plans to the king of Israel. Surrounded by soldiers, Elisha's servant is terrified. But Elisha prays, and the servant's eyes are opened to see the hills filled with heavenly horses and chariots of fire. Then Elisha prays again, and the enemy army is struck with blindness. Elisha leads them into the city, feeds them, and lets them go, showing God's protection and mercy. 2 Kings 6 verse 8-23. Prophecies during the siege of Samaria. During a severe famine caused by a siege on Samaria, Elisha prophesies that by the next day, food would be plentiful and cheap. Though a royal officer doubts him, the prophecy comes true as God causes the Syrian army to flee in fear, leaving all their supplies behind. 2 Kings 6 verse 24-720. The doubting officer is trampled to death at the city gate, just as Elisha foretold. Other miracles and final prophecy. Later, Elisha continues to counsel kings and prophesy about national events. Even after his death, his influence remains. In 2 Kings 13 verse 20-21, a dead man is thrown into Elisha's tomb, and upon touching his bones, the man comes back to life, one final miracle even in death. Conclusion. Prophet Elisha's ministry was marked by over a dozen recorded miracles, acts of healing, provision, judgment, and national deliverance. His life shows that God is deeply involved in both great and small matters, and that obedience, faith, and compassion open the door for divine power to flow. Elisha was not just a prophet of signs but a man whose actions reflected the heart of God. What lessons have you picked from the life and times of Elisha? Share with us in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, like and share. See you on the next magical tale.